Hello, thanks for joining. I am Greg Baroni from Baroni Estate Planning and Elder Law, and in this video we are going to figure out what's the deal with per Stirpes. We're going to answer that question, what is a Stirpe? Okay, so let's take a quick look. Per Stirpes and the alternatives are what's known as survivorship options. Okay, so if an account holder dies holding an account and has designated either per Stirpes or one of the alternatives, that determines how the shares of that account will be split up among the person's children, grandchildren, depending on who survives and in what generation. So let's start with the definition of per Stirpes. And per Stirpes says that the shares are going to be determined by the number of living children and deceased children with living descendants. Okay, so take a look at the screen here. I'm going to draw a quick example of that. So this is you. You are the account holder. You have 3 children, and their names are A, B, and C because that's easy. Your 3 children have their own children, your grandchildren. A has 3, B has 1, and let's say C has, say C has 2. But we'll draw 1 first and then 2. Okay, so in total you have 3 kids and you have 6 grandkids. A, B, and C are all living in this example. So you designate per Stirpes on some account, they inherit it. A takes a third, B takes a third, C takes a third. Okay, good, that's equal. That's probably what you would have wanted. But no one ever explained what per Stirpes means to you. It was just a box and you checked it. Let's look at what happens if A predeceases you. Okay, so this is going to mean a person has predeceased the account holder when they're crossed out in red. So now A is deceased. Now you die. You're the account holder. A would have taken a third, so his children are going to split that third. They're going to take a third of a third, which is a ninth. B and C are still living, so they're going to take their thirds. Now let's look at what happens if B is also deceased. Okay, so now B has died. You're still alive in this example. A and B are both dead. They leave their descendants, their kids, who are your grandkids. Now you die. You have A would have taken a third. His 3 kids take a third of a third and ninth. That stays the same. B would have taken a third. He has 1 child. That child is going to take B's third. Okay? So you can start to see with per Stirpes that we're getting some strange results now when we have 2 deceased children out of the 3. So let's take it one step further. And let's say that now C is also deceased before the account holder dies. C's third is going to go to his 2 kids. They're going to take a half of a third, which is a sixth. Okay, so look at the generation of grandchildren here. You have A's 3 kids taking a third of his third, or a ninth. B's 1 child taking a third, and C's 2 children each taking a sixth. Add all that together, it's 100%. What you end up with is complete inequality amongst your grandchildren. I don't meet many people in my office who say, if my children are deceased, I want to treat my grandchildren differently, with different percentages, because I want to stick to what my children would have got and just pass that on. What is probably more fair, and what most people seem to want, would be for these 6 grandchildren at this point to each take a sixth. Okay, so let's look at the alternatives to per Stirpes, starting with by representation. This is the first alternative. By representation means that the shares are going to be determined by the number of descendants at the first level with living descendants. Let's look at the example. This is, stick with blue. for living. This is you. You still have 3 kids. They still have the same number of grandchildren as in the first example. Okay, so you, the account holder, you're leaving thirds to your children if they survive you. If they do not, then the first thing we're going to see happen is, in this by representation example, is let's look at the shares of the number of descendants at the first level with living descendants. First level with living descendants is still your kids because B and C are alive. So we pass A's 1/3 onto his kids in thirds again, so we end up with 9ths. Okay. Now, if A and B have both predeceased the account holder, we pass B's third to his child, and that's 1/3. This is where by representation is going to be different. What happens if everyone at this level, so now C is deceased, has predeceased the account holder? Now we have a change. This no longer applies. Now, the first level with living descendants is your grandchildren's level, this level here. There are 6 of them. By representation, each grandchild is going to get a 6th. So they will have been treated equally now because they are the first level with living descendants. So that's probably a little bit better than per Stirpes. It doesn't change what happens under per Stirpes unless everyone in that first level, your children level, is already deceased. There is one more alternative, and it's called per capita. Let's take a look at that. The definition of per capita is the shares are going to be determined by the number of descendants at each level. Okay, so let's look at the example. You again, your children, their children, or your grandkids. Okay? 1/3, 1/3 here, 1/3 here. Now, first example, A predeceases. 1/9, 1/9, and 1/9. Okay, the reason that we still have A's share resulting in a 9th is because now we are looking at the shares by the number of descendants at each level. So take a look at B, take a look at C, they're alive. They're going to take 2/3. The other share is going to be 1/3 between 3 people. That would still be a 9. Here's where we're going to start to get a change with per capita. Now let's assume B is also deceased before the account holder. Now we're going to get a different result. Now we have 2/3, A's third and B's third, that's going to be split between 4 people. So those 4 people are going to take 1/4 of 2/3, which is a 6th. Okay, so now we have A and B's children each taking a 6th, which adds up to 2/3, and C still taking his third because C is still alive. Now, if we also now assume that C has predeceased, that remaining third is going to go in halves to his children, which is a 6th. So per capita is probably the fairest and most equal way of leaving inheritance by survivorship option. For some reason, you don't seem to see that on the forms that are being passed out to customers of different wealth management companies, life insurance, retirement accounts. The only box you're seeing is this per Stirpes with no real explanation of what that even means. So hopefully this video clears up a little bit of that. You can get more information on our website, www.baronilaw.com, or you can email me at greg@baronilaw.com, and we'll answer your questions. Thanks for watching, and if you learned anything valuable, please like the video. Thanks again.